So if life's worries have weighed you down, if you need an escape from your troubles, or if you just need an opportunity to begin again, join us. Let go this night, and begin again. Farewells can be a time of sadness. Letting go, difficult.
The first Fallout entry will be 24 years old this year. Fallout 3 will be 13 years old. Those born the year Fallout 1 released may have earned their bachelor's degree by now. Those born when Fallout 3 released are entering high school, and doing so in a world obviously very different from the culture and entertainment of 2008, and very different from that of 1997. The Fallout franchise has grown to great heights, garnered an entirely new audience, and maybe most importantly cultivated an amazing community that takes advantage of the mod-friendly game tools publicly released to continue the life of these games long after the release date. Furthermore, the original designers behind both Fallout 1 and 2 have been involved in countless new games that have been very successful, even if they weren't considered a direct offering to the Fallout fanbase. That said, the Fallout fanbase has created a monster. It's a well-known topic that it is so played out by this point it has actually become the center of a category of memes, mostly poking fun at the people who still, after all this time, want to create a flame war between Fallout 1 and Fallout 3, between Morrowind and Skyrim, and even between Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. A huge fan base, splitting and cracking multiple times over like a lightning bolt of shitposts, and people using the term objectively in a way that is objectively wrong. This is nothing surprising or new to human culture, particularly in the entertainment field. Movie sequels, game sequels, a band's newer albums. As much as it does get a bit tiresome at this point, 10 to 20 years later with the exact same debate points being sung back and forth, there's nothing you can do about it. And one could even argue it's simply the inevitability of an active and healthy fan base. It can't be avoided, but then something happened. It was bad enough that Fallout 76 was experiencing one of the worst launches in gaming history, arguably the worst. But right in the middle of Bethesda's self-made shitstorm, Obsidian announces a brand new IP. It's Tim and Leonard's newest project. The trailer is amazing. Whoever made it, whether it was the publisher or if it was in-house at Obsidian, used the phrase creators of Fallout. And in a terrifying and worrisome moment, all at once, every single ounce of hype Fallout 76 spent time curating was shifted directly onto the Outer Worlds. A lot of people saw the writing on the wall, or read between the lines, but it's not like it took an investigative journalist to see how this could turn out poorly. A team of about 75 people at what some would refer to as a AA studio, using a game engine they haven't used previously, with new design leads, as Leonard was just hired on for this project, and this was Tim's first project lead at the studio. Pause for emphasis. Was about to be given the AAA media treatment and was now potentially front and center on every mainstream gamer's radar. Microsoft acquires Obsidian right before the game releases, and the media buzz is just bursting at the seams and can no longer contain itself, it seems. Tim and Leonard recognize what's going on and try to essentially do some damage control on some of the very misleading hype that the game's media is pushing. The next Fallout this, and the game Bethesda should have been making that. Tim and Leonard explicitly do interviews saying they don't want people using their game to add to the trash pile on top of Fallout 76. They don't want people comparing it to any Fallout or any other games for that matter. They don't want people expecting it to be a AAA 100+ hour expansive experience. But it's too late. Those headlines simply aren't sexy, and those statements by the design team get easily buried by a mountain of clickbait articles about the next Fallout and how Fallout 76 is this and the Outer Worlds is that. And then the Outer Worlds releases, and before most people can even get their hands on the game, due to an extremely questionable publisher decision to take an exclusivity deal with Epic Store, the reviews come out with an arguably completely unfair lukewarm reception. Disregarding the entire expectation of a smaller studio making a brand new IP in a new-to-them engine, it gets simultaneously praised and panned. Praised for its writing and overall system design, and panned for its scope and size. The narrative becomes unanimous, and hundreds of less creative games journalists and YouTubers parrot the exact narrative with nearly no thought about what the expectations should have been and whether or not it deserved to be compared to Fallout entries. Most people see the price tag and their minds can't be changed. They see the numbers 6 and 0, and the journalistic narrative is 100% set. It's too short for a full-price video game. Do any outlets mention the scope control and the reduction of crunch, an often sexy topic in the gaming industry, in regards to the Outer Worlds? Nope, none that I saw. Anybody mention the size of the design team? A couple offhanded comments here and there. Any mentions of it being their first project in Unreal 4 or Leonard and Tim's first project lead at that studio? Again, a couple of mentions here and there, but nothing substantial. I watched the no-clip dev doc on the Outer Worlds, and it was heartbreaking to see how well thought out and planned the project was and how focused they kept the team. And after all that hard work to make the game they truly wanted to make, it gets mildly panned in the industry for being too short. And furthermore, others have the audacity to say the game is too shallow at times. Again, if your intention is to compare it to New Vegas, you could kind of say that with that comparison. But if you are supposed to compare it to the entire gaming industry, even if you're just sticking to the RPG genre, there's absolutely nothing shallow about this game's design and writing. And as if this timeline isn't developing bad enough, something else begins happening, and I can hardly believe it as it grows. The cracks and splinters from the original Fallout fanbase start splitting yet again, and it revitalizes decades-old arguments and pushes what should be a singular fanbase even further and further away from each other. Many would have thought you could mostly sum up things in a sort of 1-2 New Vegas and Outer Worlds group versus 3, 4, and 76 group, but that's not even what happens. An embarrassingly large number of Fallout New Vegas fans absolutely pan the Outer Worlds right alongside the game's journalists because they too convinced themselves that they were getting New Vegas in space. They couldn't let go. They couldn't leave the past in the past and begin again with a realistic approach and fair mindset. I'm in the Outer Worlds Discord, and all I want to do is discuss the current state of the game, learn more about its mechanics, and reminisce about the best written lines and quests in game. But what do I get instead? Seemingly a cavalcade of Fallout discussion that often isn't even comparing them to Outer Worlds. Some people have come to say that it isn't quite on New Vegas' level, and they are disappointed by that, and some people aren't even comparing it. They have simply come to continue the same 1 versus 3, or 3 versus New Vegas, or even 4 versus 76 narratives that are aging like milk in the Mojave sun. The 1 versus 3 Flame War is 13 years old. The 3 versus New Vegas Flame War is 11 years old. Fallout 4 came out in 2015, and 76 was 2018. I understand that to passionate fans, those are just numbers with little meaning, but there is a reality to be gleaned from those numbers. The Fallout franchise has an entire new fan base now. This is something I've come to realize now more than ever, because when the Fallout debates were reignited by the release of the Outer Worlds, I noticed an entirely new narrative that I hadn't seen yet, because it couldn't exist before this time. It was people whose first Fallout was 4, and are currently enjoying 76. And these people, many of them younger obviously, said something that just blew my lid wide open. They couldn't get into 3 or NV because of the gameplay. I was awestruck. The cycle had turned completely over once more. The Wheel of Time made a complete revolution. The same argument you often hear about 3 New Vegas fans who can never get into 1 and 2 because of some glaring UI issues and weirdly paced turn-based combat, was now applying to something as thin as worse graphics and combat with little feedback. It was heartbreaking to read, not because they are refusing to experience 1 and 2 or 3 in New Vegas, but because people who were fans of 3 in New Vegas and maybe didn't even play 1 and 2 were slinging shit at fans of 4 and 76 and couldn't detect a chunk of irony if it had targeted their groin and vats and scored a critical hit. This issue has been bugging me ever since The Outer Worlds released, and TKS Mantis made a tremendous video that I was very much hoping somebody in the community would make about how Fallout fans perceive the franchise, as well as the rather basic concept of time. The simple, inevitable passage of time. I was 18 when Fallout 3 released. We were all blown away by the game. I'm 30 now, and I have to sit here and listen to kids who watched H-Bomber Guy's video tell me that Fallout 3 was a garbage fire, top to bottom, not realizing that H-Bomb is a game reviewer and that his perception of a game can get skewed by the narrative he wants to pursue, similar to how game reviewers may have flubbed the task at hand when reviewing The Outer Worlds. I wish I could effectively describe what that first playthrough of Fallout 3 was like for us in 2008, what the first playthrough of Morrowind was like in 2002. Every game has its flaws, particularly when looked back on with a microscope once the initial honeymoon period fades and you are deciding whether or not you want to purchase those rose-tinted glasses DLC for the game. I'm not here to say Fallout 3 is a super good Fallout game. I think the content on my channel makes it rather clear where my preferences stand. And that is also what makes it all the more pertinent to emphasize, particularly to newer fans of the franchise as well as Outer Worlds players, how dogshit and pointless entry comparison is. I've had to more or less bow out of the so-called Fallout community. It used to be that Fallout 3 and 4 fans would try to clap back at me for discussing positive aspects of New Vegas, but recently within Reddit and Discord, it has been possible to get caught in the middle of a flame war and get hate from the 3 and 4 crowd and the 1, 2 and New Vegas crowd at the same time. That is to say, you can no longer be a centrist. Each side has dug in their heels. The release of Fallout 76 and the 10-year anniversary of New Vegas has divided further a fanbase that can never reconcile itself. And to that, I give a major shout out and a mad props to anybody who has had the brass balls, the sheer audacity, the utter gusto to enjoy all of the Fallout entries. If you, like myself, have never played Fallout 76, I still give you top marks and high honors, because that game wasn't just a questionable Fallout entry, but was most importantly a practice in bad business, denying refunds on their new launcher service and omitting canvas bags from their overpriced collector's edition and more. I'll one day play Fallout 76 when it's $5 or $10, and hopefully there's nobody around to bother me and or crash the server, which I have no interest in being in. Hey, they could even add in an end-of-life patch that allows single-player characters, and maybe even mods, but today is not that day. And with that, I beseech you with all my heart, as presumably a Fallout and or Outer Worlds fan, I beg of you to let go. Let go of your old world blues. See the passage of time for what it is. Especially if you are a newer fan whose first Fallout title was 4 or 76, or if you're brand new coming from the Outer Worlds experience. Do not, whatever you do, do not see fit to parrot the opinions of us aging boomers who couldn't let go of their preferences, of their perceptions, of their personal experiences that they are immensely saddened to realize they will never experience again. No. The Outer Worlds is not New Vegas in space. No, Fallout 76 is not Fallout 3. It isn't even Fallout 4. It is not your job to gear up for the trenches and pick sides and sling shit back and forth when there absolutely will not be a Fallout 1 type game, a new Vegas sequel, or whatever your extremely specific personal desires are. There will be new games, new IPs, new people working in the industry, and with all this, new opportunities to attempt to have our first time in Fallout 3 experience, first time in Morrowind experience. However, you can only guarantee that you will never experience such a feeling again if you think it's a memory and not a future aspiration. Thanks for listening.